to the MZO. Because again,
Okay.
we're not required to provide a landscape plan as
Right.
part of the PUD.
Right.
So we would default to, in addition to what a fence provides, a 6-foot fence, on the east property line, we're saying we're providing a vegetated buffer, and that goes through the process delineated by the MZO.
Yeah,
Okay.
Article 9 would apply to the plan unit development. That is actually outlined in Article 9.
And I also think, just to note on that, particularly around, trees that are along that part of it, moving this lodge
Over
10 feet further, kind of further adds to
the buffer.
that.
But the challenge is, and Alexis noted, that in addition to buildings and driveways and sidewalks, and to meet the stormwater requirements, we have an area with pervious paving, we have a drainage swale, we need to manage that, we need to direct the water, and we need to capture it, and then we need to detain it. That is all shown on that stormwater plan.
Which is
challenge
right
is-
beside the Hayner's house.
And
The swale.
Yes, creating a swale and tree roots don't work together.
Okay.
Hence, the moving of the building that additional 10 feet.
You gonna move the swale? Or is that staying where it is?
That's a good
On
question.
So what I'm hearing is if this swale is staying right up there on the property line, then you cannot put the vegetation there because you've got to keep it open for the stormwater runoff. Is that what I'm hearing from you?
That a portion of that area will be dedicated to a swale. And the area is larger than it was previously.
On the stormwater, I know that your area is fairly flat, so that makes it easier to build and do other things. But right across the road, it's not. So has your stormwater plan taken into account all the water that'll be coming down that hill?
Talking to the north.
Yeah, up across Georgia Terrace, because there's a lot of water that comes off that hill that you're going to end up having to deal with.
Either Alexis or Brandon, can one of you talk about the net stormwater detention requirement?
You would definitely meet that. Well, for the stormwater detention requirement, I can speak to the amount of impervious surface that does trigger that, and it's 24% of your total lot.
So, and correct me with this statement. There is water that's flowing onto the parcel from outside of the parcel. We are providing a Montreat stormwater management ordinance approved stormwater system. It only captures the amount of net stormwater increase that is required by the Montreat zoning ordinance.
So to add to that, when you start disturbing more than 10,000 square feet, you are required to have it engineered by a professional.
It is being engineered, yes. And so they have confirmed that the system designed and shown in that diagram meets the ordinance as far as retention goes.
And Richard, I'm sorry. Is there anything with stormwater specifically, the kind of north flowing segment that you wanted to speak to?
Only to the extent that we have considered and are still considering ways in which we might enhance the plan, either through further vegetation, through further site development, or even through increasing the size and capacity of the existing systems that we are required to install. It's way too early to tell, A, how much that would cost, and B, whether we could afford it. So we're presenting the legal requirement for our PUD application. But of course, stormwater is of a concern to the community. It's definitely a concern to us.
Can I just read the exact language? So in accordance with the Stormwater Management Ordinance, the project is required to provide structural measures which, and this is a direct quote from the ordinance, So structural measures which, quote, control and treat the difference in stormwater runoff volume leaving the project site between the pre- and post-development conditions for, at a minimum, the 1-year, 24-hour storm as determined by NOAA data for Black Mountain. So that's the ordinance requirement. And you'll note in there, because we have pre-existing development, impervious paving and buildings, it is a net calculation, very much like that calculation I was talking about with the parking, which per the MZO is an allowed way of calculating. The net increase in building is a net increase in parking. The net increase in building is a net increase in stormwater.
Where does, I know you don't have the stormwater,
Ordinance.
Sorry, paperwork
It's in
here.
your general ordinances, it's not in the.
No, their plan for stormwater control.
It's it's on
It's,
30, page 30. It does, I do not believe it has a number, but it's page 30 of your packet.
Where does the majority of the water run right now before construction through that property? I mean, basically, is that water going to be rerouted in between the new lodge and the Hayner's house? Or are you building a swale there to capture?
We are building a swale on the east side of the building
Okay.
to manage, that's part of the management.
Right.
Is directing the water, capturing the water, and detaining the water.
And that swale is not there right now?
Correct.
Okay.
And so our civil engineers are designing that to maintain the water on MRA's property and not direct water onto the neighboring property.
I understand that. So if you've got a swale there and you cannot put trees or vegetation around the swale, but you have to have a 6-foot-high fence in between two unlike properties, are you going to put a fence there then?
Yes, within that 30 feet, there's room for the swale and the vegetation.
She's asking about
No, fence. If you say you can't put vegetation next to a swale because of the
Oh, no,
stormwater control.
We can. But we're going to be modulating that terrain from what it currently is. I was blending in this question of trees. We were talking about trees
Right.
in regard to the swale. I brought up the swale because to create the swale, where are those tree roots? They're right at the surface. And that's what we need to modulate to meet our
Right.
stormwater requirements.
I understand that. So if you've
And
got
then
a
we'll come
swale,
back with new trees
new trees.
in that vegetated buffer that we're showing.
So in between the swale and the Hayner's house, we're talking like a dip here, right? Here's the Hayner's house, here's the lodge, here's the swale. You're going to put trees over here, next to the Hayner's house, or you're going to put it next to the lodge? The vegetation, or both?
We're showing that buffer area. I think that's a great question. We can dial that in.
And yeah, and
If it's on the
if you're
east or
supposed to
west
have
side
a
of the swale.
if you're supposed to have a 6-foot-high fence or vegetation in between two unlike buildings,
Mm-hmm.
residential and lodge, where is that going to be since you have a swale there? Where is that fence or vegetation going to be? That's my question.
Well, I guess more importantly, where's the water going to go?
No. I understand where the water's going.
Okay.
It's going down. But
So if we
But
look
if
at
you're
it this
supposed to
way,
have a screen between
Yes.
these two
Right.
properties, where is that screen going to
The
be?
swell would not be on facing them.
I understand.
That's what you're asking. The
No,
vegetative buffer would be in.
well, but with these zoning parameters,
Mm-hmm.
and I want to come back to that most important word in the very beginning of the PUD definition is flexibility.
Mm-hmm.
If we provide, we're saying we're going above and beyond, and in this zone, we're going to provide a vegetated buffer.
Mm-hmm.
But at a minimum, we need to meet the ordinance, which is a 6-foot fence.
6-foot fence.
And there's nothing in the ordinance that says, I mean, there are parameters, I would assume, in the ordinance that say where we can and cannot put the fence. But it's not a single location. And we're not showing that on the plan because we don't want to give away that flexibility. I think with the zoning regulations, property owners have the flexibility to put a fence here. Maybe the next year they say, we want the fence a little bit closer to the property line. I think that is allowed within the zoning ordinance, that we need to meet the ordinance, which is the screening and the separation. But again, bringing this back to zoning and less about the specifics of design.
I just wanna-
And I think P and Z, I think you all could say, we want, as a condition, as part of this approval, we want the fence right here. This is what we want. I mean, I think that could happen. Or the language allows for, there must be screening, however it's done per the ordinance.
I just want to make sure that Eleanor's question has been answered.
Yeah,
Have you gotten an answer to your question?
No.
What I hear you're asking is there enough space between the swell and the property to do the things that we're saying?
I'm asking, are you going to do it? He's saying you can't put vegetation next to a swale because of the tree roots.
Oh,
And the
yes.
swale is
No, no.
right there on the property line.
Existing trees will be affected by the
Yeah.
creation of the swale.
I get that.
Vegetation can be located within that area of the swale. But we need to modulate the
I
earth
understand that,
first.
yeah. I mean, I'm sorry to go on and on about this. However, if the swale starts right smack on the property line, let's just say it does, that the slope starts, there's no way to put vegetation there unless you put it on the Hayner side. So now you're talking about putting vegetation on the other side of the swale, or a fence, or whatever that we have in our zoning. And I want to make sure that they are screened. And I think we owe that to them.
And the vegetative buffer is depicted on the plan,
Correct.
Correct.
so it will be required.
And I want to know is that an azalea bush or is that a 6-foot tree?
Yeah.
Because I know people that will do the minimum amount, and I want to make sure that they are taken care of. So that's my whole line of questioning. I'm sorry.
It sounds like some description of the buffer, whether it's impermeable or something else, and anticipated height or something
More
like that
description.
would probably be.
Yes, I understand the need for flexibility, but I also can see that would lead to an unpleasant outcome for some people.
So I want to make sure that the P and Z asks all the questions that we need to. I do want to note, we'll need to move on to public
I have
comments.
one other question. You're clear that the architectural rendering is anticipated, because until you actually get into it, are you anticipating any necessary changes that would require you to come back to the P and Z for further clarification? I mean, I assume the square footage, where the foundations, all of that is pretty set. But, if you haven't come up with an architectural rendering exactly what it's going to look like, are there going to be any changes that you anticipate that you might have to have further input from the PNC?
Design input?
I will answer that. So his renderings, the conceptual renderings, are not part of the application. He presented that for information. If such drawings were part of the package, possibly, they would have to come back to you, but at this point, they are not. Hopefully that makes sense.
So what within the plan governs that? I mean, there's creative design, there's compatibility with neighborhood character, there's open spaces, like there are bullet points that are very summary.
Again, those designs that he presented were not part of this package. So,
Right, but I think the question is, what governs that, Alexis?
Why were they not included as part of the package?
It
I
is-
mean, I'm sure there's a reason.
so architectural design standards are, okay. I will let them answer that for you.
Oh, no, I was gonna ask you to, I was gonna defer that to y'all.
I would say that's an applicant choice as to how much level of detail to put forward in a plan like this.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Did I hear Brandon say it's the applicant's choice?
That is what he said, yes.
Okay, the only thing I can add to that is our original application did include those design drawings. And further to the question of what governs design, at a certain point, I would ask the P and Z, the commission, to consider the reality with all of these questions as it relates to design, beauty, specifications, that our interests are aligned here. We have no interest in building a building that is not beautiful. We have no interest in building a building that differs substantially from the renderings that you have seen. Our donors, the people who are going to stay in these buildings, our board, there's not any daylight between our goals and what those drawings that we have put forward publicly at the community meeting on April the 9th and have continued to refine since then, and have continued to be refined in conversations with members of the community and with our architects. But we did submit those drawings as part of our original application. It just was not felt that it was appropriate for design to be included in the formal application, and so we withdrew them.
And to be clear, I don't have any problem with the design itself. It just,
Right.
what I heard was that because until you actually get the permission and can start the process, you may have to make some design changes
Sure.
to fit that, to fit reality and I just didn't know if there was, because this is locking you into certain things, are you anticipating any unforeseen changes that might require you to come back?
We are not, but if we needed to, we would.
Sorry.
Okay.
Okay. So the concern that we had with that is that it could be construed as, it could be looked at as a design standard, and that if you changed from it, you might have to come back.
Yes. And when you look at the PUD references to the words design, there's creative design in the layout of buildings. There's design as it relates to site layout, multiple site layout references. And then there's design as it relates to density. I think where we're at, and as Richard said, the designs were originally submitted because they were part of the community meeting. This is what we showed the community.
Which is still on the website to
Yes.
this day.
But MRA, when Altura looks at this language of the PUD, it is very specific to site. The reference to buildings is how those buildings relate to each other. This is, just to bring it back to, this is really a zoning question. And that's our vantage point, and why it's not included.
Any other questions before we move to the open to public hearing?
Madam Chair, can I just make one more comment on a previous subject before you move to public comment?
Please go ahead.
Thank you. I just want to come back to Eleanor's questions about the vegetative buffer. Just to state it publicly, there are a variety of factors to consider in developing a vegetative buffer. For example, the smaller the plant, the more likely it is to survive. Building and placing in close proximity full-grown plants so that they will screen a particular facility might do well in the beginning, but then 5 years later, those plants have grown together and look like an unsightly mess. In other words, there are a lot of factors. The important point I want you to hear is this. We would certainly be willing to work with our neighbors to make sure that they were satisfied with that with that buffer, given the variables and the factors that we all have to consider. It is certainly in our interest to do so, and I think it would be I think they'd be satisfied with our efforts in that regard.
Thank you,
Thank
Richard.
And I would just like to kind of reiterate again Richard's last point. It is in our interest to design a nice building that is for the uses that we've shown here. And our desire is to be transparent and to make sure that people have a clear understanding, following the process that is given to us to build the thing that we need, which is our point of coming here and going down this process. So.
Thank you.
So Scuttlebutt has it that you guys have been in front of another commission. That commission approved your previous plan.
Correct.
It was rejected by
You might need to get a little closer to the mic.
a local judge, and the appellate court reversed that, and now it is back up on appeal.
That's correct.
So you guys have, you come and ask us to approve a PUD. You've got two different boogies, two different dances that you're playing with. Which one does MRA intend to pursue? Why are you coming here if you've already got it done through the IL or whatever it,
IR.
IR method?
Can I?
Yeah, I was going to let Richard take the first stab at that one.
I'm sorry, sir, you finished with your question. I didn't mean to cut you off.
You didn't cut me off.
Okay. The main thing for the P&Z board to know is that if the town approves the PUD project through this process as submitted, the MRA's plan is to proceed with developing the property under the PUD, period, full stop. What happens to the special use permit, in the court is a question for the attorneys, but from our perspective, the PUD becomes the operative plan for the property. Again, period,
Thank you.
full stop.
Thank you.
All right, thank you for standing up there as long as you did. Okay, we're going to move into public hearings. So reminder, 5-minute time limit. Are you going to be able to show the, okay, thank you. So Clay will start the clock, and let's have our first public speaker. Or did you have a question? Did you want to come to the microphone, or you want to please come and introduce yourself?
Thank you very much, and thank you for this excellent and really important discussion that you all have been having this morning and afternoon. I'm Priscilla Hayner, 319 Assembly Drive, and I come here as a representative of the Montreat Stewards, which is an organization formed over the last few years of over 1,300 people who've been trying to basically advocate for improvements to the MRA's plans in terms of building future accommodations and additional accommodations that the MRA has identified in its needs, and especially with a focus on environmental concerns as well as a few other concerns. I'd like to just briefly tell you where we are, and then I have several colleagues also from the stewards that will also make other more specific comments. So as a member of the Montreat Stewards leadership team, we've been meeting with the MRA for the last 8 weeks on a weekly, sometimes twice weekly basis for lengthy meetings. These have been very productive, very positive, very informative, very useful for us. I really want to thank Richard. I want to thank Chuck and Tanner as well for joining all of these meetings and for addressing all of our questions in detail, and also the spirit of the conversations. I think we've all been very much in agreement that the many Zoom meetings we've had have been very, very positive and very useful, certainly from our side, I can say that. And I also want to stress that some elements of their PUD plan are very positive. So clearly they've noted that the footprint is smaller, having 3 buildings rather than 1 larger building, moving it or shrinking it from the east in 10 feet, about 5 or 6% of the total size, looking at it from Assembly Drive, is very, very good. Overall, the design is very positive. There's one specific thing worth mentioning as another positive, the heating and air conditioning system, which I believe in the prior model was intended to be outdoors up next to Georgia Terrace and would have really sort of thrown noise up the mountain. And other buildings have had that challenge in other places in Montreat. That's been moved, as has been said, to the basement. So there's some really important changes, design and intent and specifics. So thank you to all of those in MRA and in Chuck and his firm for all of that. So where are we after 8 weeks of these conversations? And I would say that we are not sure that the project is quite there. We think it can get there and probably will get there, and we don't oppose it as such. In fact, I foresee that we sort of collectively may well be fully in support of it, hopefully sooner rather than later. But there are some specific concerns we still have. And to be clear, we've been discussing these concerns or questions with the MRA in detail. And they've said, as Richard has just said, in relationship to one or two of these items, that they are exploring and researching what they can and cannot do, which is exactly what they should do, so that it can be clear exactly what the program or what the project will be and what will look like. So they may perhaps need that time to give more concrete answers in some of these areas. So with that, I want to turn it over to some of my colleagues to speak on specific elements. First, Powell Jones will speak to issues around protecting the green space which abuts their property to the north on Georgia Terrace. There's a designated green space and some other elements around greenery and trees. Kate Hayner, my sister, will then speak also on other specific tree ideas, including best practices, which we hope that we can all agree to, and that will settle that. And then Harry Jones will speak to issues around stormwater management. And finally, Margaret Berry will address questions or issues around design, which, as I said earlier, is mostly a positive message. The one point perhaps to highlight on design right from the get-go is we've also seen renderings. We received the original application from the MRA after they had submitted it. We think the renderings are quite good. There's actually other renderings in addition to what have been shown today on the screen, and I hope those would be available for the public to see as well. They're very useful to get a sense of what the project is likely to look like. And the core request we would have is that the renderings are going to, or I should say the final product will be substantially in conformity with the renderings, which is sort of common language. Of course, some things change as you go along. But that would be one core recommendation. So we would want to then, in my final sentence, put to you all, we hope that you all can engage with the MRA and the questions that we have, and hopefully, perhaps if they need more time to come to a more clear direction on some of the specifics, that could be helpful. At the end of the presentations, we will then have a one-page sheet that gives you our few specific requests or recommendations to you that you might consider. Thank you very much. Thank you for all of your work on this.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak, and today is a great example of the kind of commitment that you as a commission.
I know that Priscilla introduced you, but if you would just introduce yourself.
Yes, I'm Powell Jones, and I'm an owner at 314 North Carolina Terrace, just above the proposed PUD. And thanks to each of you for what you're giving to this work. Today's a great example of that kind of commitment of your time. I appreciate the condensed plan MRA has made. I'm encouraged by their cottage approach in the form of a PUD. I do think that the P&Z must be particularly careful with the first PUD ever in Montreat to do this well and to make their decision keeping in mind the long-term use of the full site that is not even being contemplated with this PUD decision. Also, this is the largest construction project for Montreat in probably 20 years, and it's on our main entry road, which is a showcase for all that know and love Montreat. I'll talk to you about trees, and y'all have already had a lot of good discussion about trees. Thank you for the level of your questioning to be sure that we get the best result here. In walking the site after consultation with the town, it's not clear that anyone that I spoke with the town this week fully understands where the right-of-way stops and where the MRA property begins in this part of Montreat. This varies a lot, evidently, in this area of Montreat. In other words, the right-of-ways are not consistent road to road. On the Georgia Terrace side of the site, there appears to be a 30-foot utility easement and mapped town green space that includes a large group of trees and rhododendrons, it's been commented on already in the hearing, that serve as a great buffer. But it's not clear from the site plan how MRA might try to utilize that space, or how it might be impacted by paving or parking or so forth. And that needs to be clarified. I'd be opposed to losing this natural buffer that helps reduce stormwater runoff and would be a buffer for residential neighbors for light, noise, and lodge activity. There appears to be a similar right-of-way of tree and shrub buffers on the Assembly Drive side. I'm not sure. I'm going to give you a map in just a moment that came from the town, but even with that map, it's not clear. And I walked the site with a town member who was incredibly helpful, but they basically said, if you're looking at the property, and because it's unclear in a lot of the roadways around Montreat, unless it's surveyed, you're not absolutely sure what's right away and what's the property owner. So I would encourage you to see that for the purposes of the P&Z, the town zoning and code enforcement staff, and the public need that information to know what's MRA's property and what is not their property. Trees on the MRA property itself, on the proposed PUD. There are around a dozen mature trees on the west side of the MRA property that they have indicated would be kept. I would hope that MRA, in coordination with their architect, engineers, and contractor, and an arborist, would clearly plan and make an effort to save as many additional trees as feasible on this prime Montreat property with a steep grade. Trees that are saved to reduce trees that can be saved reduce stormwater runoff and will help keep this property in the central hub of Montreat as green as feasible. Trees not marked as saved trees should then be understood by all concerned with PUD approval that they will likely be removed by MRA. The Montreat zoning section that's already been referred to, number 904, existing flora, I won't read the whole thing. All developers of public and private property shall make every effort to protect and retain existing trees. That's the start of it. I suggest that the P&Z committee have MRA mark the saved trees with bright colored flagging tape as a next step and consult with an arborist, which the MRA has indicated they are willing to do before a decision is made on the PUD application, so that the Montreat Tree Board, P&Z Committee, town staff, and the public are fully aware of the mature trees that will remain on the site with the PUD plan, and that appropriate stipulations are included in the PUD for longer-term projects on the site regarding tree removal and further development. To wrap up, I'm encouraged by the cottage plan MRA is proposing, the fact that they've condensed what they're planning on building. However, I believe there's much more work to be done by MRA in the town before the P&Z can approve this zoning and this project. Marking right-of-ways, property lines, green space, and trees to save will put all concerned in the best position for guidelines required on this site for the long term. Thank you.
Thank you.
Harry Jones is going to talk on stormwater. Actually, Kate Hayner is going to talk on trees first.
Thank you. My name is Kate Hayner, 319 Assembly Drive. Our house sits adjacent to the planned lodge and cottages. I will be speaking about trees in relationship to the P&Z ordinance, indicating in part that trees are to be protected and preserved during construction in accordance with sound conservation practices. My main message is that there are best practices to preserve trees. We have had many constructive hours of meetings with the MRA, and while I do not oppose the PUD application, we have not yet received clarity on questions about trees. We do not feel that the MRA is opposed to using best practices, but they need to express more clarity on this. I am asking your committee to request that clarity. We hired 2 professional arborists from 2 different companies for their expertise. We asked both arborists for their assessment of best practices to protect our trees near the property line, as well as the trees the MRA has indicated they will retain on their property, and also the green space on Georgia Terrace. Both arborists gave us great best practice ideas, and both were similar. Will be giving you Andrew Wagner's written recommendation of these practices. He is one of the arborists. While the specifics of what best practices will be used need to be worked out, some examples both arborists gave us for the protection of trees are to protect the critical root zone, to secure this zone with firm fencing, to assure all construction activities are kept outside this critical root zone, to keep all traffic and grading out of the protected root zone, and to layer thick mulch within that protected zone. We were told in part that this best practice is that it is critical to have someone monitor compliance with these practices to assure that they are strictly followed. It was also suggested that the trees in the town green space be protected with padding around the trunks, and was strongly encouraged not to pave the current gravel road to further protect the tree roots. One of the arborists pointed out a number of the trees on the MRA property in relationship to the planned lodge and cottages that have not been indicated to be saved may be possible to be retained since they will not be near the buildings. I would also like to mention that the sugar maple on the back corner of our property and close to the planned cottages has been looked at by 3 different arborists and is estimated to be at least 130 years old. One arborist said it is the largest sugar maple he has ever seen. We are especially concerned about preserving this tree. So my request is that the Planning and Zoning Commission, you all, allow more time for the MRA to determine the expected trees that can be protected before giving your final recommendation, and to require best practices to preserve the trees to be protected on the MRA property and the neighboring property close to the property line. Thank you.
Can we get electronic copies of these
Yeah,
that y'all are
you can get
handing
an
out?
electronic copy of that.
It's right here.
Yeah, if you could send them to the town, that would be great. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Harry Jones. Holly and I own a home at 300 North Carolina Terrace. Thank you for your service to this town. You love it. You love Monterey just like we do. Hurricane Helene reframed our concept of stormwater. Last summer, I was at the PHC in a writing class, and the theme was, how has Hurricane Helene impacted your life? And it was overwhelming to hear the stories of how people's lives had been changed, their property had damaged, loss of lives. Many of you know people who were devastated by the hurricane. It's really changed things. According to one person with the town of Montreat, I was told that $11 million in damage was done in the town of Montreat through Hurricane Helene. So we're here to help build a path forward for this project. We have 3 recommendations on stormwater, and we'll give that to you in writing. We appreciate the good discussions we've had with the MRA and MRA's willingness to go deeper into stormwater, possibility of strengthening the stormwater management. We understand their implications not only in terms of cost, but logistics to increase the capacity of the stormwater management, not just at the bare minimum, but to establish the best practices based on what we know today about stormwater. And the future points towards heavier storms and more frequent ones. The Town of Montreat website has some really good information. You probably have already all reviewed it. The information on stormwater on the Town of Montreat website is very instructive. One phrase in there, it says, in fact, sediment in streams is the #1 water pollutant in western North Carolina today. How many of you have seen children playing in Flat Creek? We grew up playing in Flat Creek and rock hopping, and children and grandchildren. You know, that Flat Creek is a tributary that flows into a larger river for trout fishing, water recreation, and all kinds of sports. A lot of people are impacted. I was, July the 4th, I was in Flat Creek rock hopping with my granddaughters, and I thought, just think of all the people whose health can be positively impacted by this creek, or is, and about the animals that live in Flat Creek. And you realize Flat Creek is 70 feet from this project. So Hurricane Helene changed our understanding of the dangers of stormwater, but the stormwater standards have not been updated to reflect the dangers we now understand. So here's our request, and again, we'll give this to you in writing. There are 3 things regarding stormwater management: the capacity, increasing the capacity of the stormwater management system, reducing impermeable surface, and the trees. So first, and it's all geared to reducing stormwater flow into the creek. And here's what we propose: strengthen the StormTech system to protect against a 2-year, 24-hour storm event. We understand that the current system is intended to meet the minimal state and town requirements, that of a 1-year, 24-hour storm event. As you know, the community is very concerned about the risk to the creek, especially given how close the property stands to Flat Creek and the considerably heavier storms that we are now experiencing. Strengthening the system to cover a 2-year, 24-hour storm would upgrade these protections and help protect against erosion, pollution, and property damage. So, capacity of the stormwater management system, reduce impermeable surfaces. As we've discussed with MRA, the asphalt areas south of Reynolds could be paved with permeable stones, similar to the plan for the roundabout area to the east. There may be other areas to reduce impermeable surface, resulting in a more controlled flow of stormwater runoff. And third, large tree landscaping for long-term erosion and stormwater control. The type of greenery will impact water retention and control. Experts advise, quote, the more trees the better, end quote, and to resist relying on low-level bushes and smaller plants. Thank you for the opportunity to participate with you all.
Thank you.
I'm Margaret Berry, 314 North Carolina Terrace. Thank you all for being here. Thank all of you for being here. You know, we have something that unifies us all. We all love Montreat. We're all on the same side. And we want to do the best for Montreat for generations. Secondly, we love and appreciate MRA. MRA means so much to our community, and we want to help them to reach their goals while also protecting the interest of the community at large. As we've all talked about already, the Town Comprehensive Plan showed that 90% of Montreaters wish to preserve and protect Montreat's character and design. The Montreat stewards represent hundreds of people, and we've been hearing from them that they are quite concerned, even anxious, that aspects of this project will not reflect the character of the area. We hope this project will become a visual asset to our community rather than one that feels out of step. And we're very pleased with with what the architects are bringing to this, and very hopeful. But we still have concerns. Recently, the Montreat Stewards hired an architectural historian to give us perspective on Montreat design issues. A few weeks ago, MRA graciously allowed our consultant to join in a meeting with their prime architect, and we had a really helpful discussion. It was, on the whole, very positive about the design of the proposed building. The consultant had some recommendations that the MRA team is considering. They have accepted a couple of them, and we hope they'll adopt many more of her recommendations. The main building will be quite large. If you walk it off, it's 159 feet wide. It's 10 feet narrower than before, and we're thankful for that. But you will see that it's going to be something of a shock when you drive into Montreat and see it. We hope the developer will adopt design suggestions that will soften the appearance of its massive size and also make it cohesive with the rest of the community. Isn't it exhilarating to drive into Montreat, drive through that gate, and see the lovely houses tucked behind deep vegetative cover? This is part of the Montreat style. Our consultant recommended that the developer preserve as many trees as possible to help retain that look. It takes 100 years to replace a 100-year-old tree. She also encouraged landscaping on Assembly Drive and the other sides that will visually break up the size of the building, and it will help conform to the community design. In sum, we ask that the developer incorporate recommendations that will soften the massive size of the structure and also reflect the character of the community. This building's appearance will have a lasting impact on our community, and we want it to be a source of pride rather than a point of contention. Secondly, we ask that the committee helps ensure that the final construction is consistent with the architectural vision that has been presented. None of us wants to see a finished product that has departed from the vision we all expected. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yep, I got one. Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you for allowing me to speak today. I am Kelly Kimball Moysan, the daughter of Dr. Millard Kimball and Mrs. Sandra Kimball, who are the owners of the Montreat property 316 North Carolina Terrace. Their property sits directly across the street from the proposed new project, and they will be directly impacted by this project for quite a long time. Neither of my parents could be here today due to serious health issues that have taken them back to Florida, but I do have a written statement from them both that they would like me to read so that their concerns can be heard, addressed, and put into the recorded record of this meeting. Dear Planning and Zoning Committee members, thank you for the opportunity to express our concerns about the proposed MRA New Village Plan B building project and the establishment of a PUD. When the hotel project was first announced 5 years ago, we spoke to the MRA board about our concerns about potential noise, lighting, parking, loss of trees, pollution of Flat Creek, and structural damage to the existing homes adjacent to the construction site. This past week, July 10th, we met with MRA President Mr. Richard DuBose to discuss the new village concept, Plan B. Following this discussion, we still have some concerns that we had with the hotel project, which was Plan A. Of all the issues, our major issue still continues to be to our existing home from excavation and possible blasting. Excavation and loss of trees could lead to increased instability of our fragile mountain. This is especially true to our home at 316 North Carolina Terrace. It's been our home of 50 years, which is now 110 years old. It is supported by a 12 to 14-foot stone retaining wall on Georgia Terrace, directly across from the proposed village cottages. Should this wall fail due to any excavation or blasting during this proposed project, our home could shift vicariously and could be severely damaged. If the request for the PUD is approved by the town, then does the town become responsible for the protection of our property from any damage incurred during this construction? We feel that the MRA and the town of Montreat must assure us in writing that our property will be protected from such damages. We also feel that this is imperative for us to verbalize these concerns and ask that they be entered into the public record of the town of Montreat. Sincerely, Millard and Sandra Kimball. One other issue that we would like to bring to everyone's attention is the current parking problem that is already affecting Georgia Terrace and North Carolina Terrace, and will only get worse when this new project begins. Currently, the MRA staff is working out of the Heritage Foundation, which sits on Georgia Terrace. So the staff has been parking on the property that is being proposed for the MRA Village project. Once that project begins, the MRA staff will be forced to find new parking among our residential homes along Georgia Terrace and North Carolina Terrace, as these are the only streets in this area. Our street parking barely holds parking for us as homeowners, and we cannot squeeze MRA workers' cars into this area as well, in addition to any guest cars that will be parking in this area once the village project is completed. As residents, we are concerned about this congested parking issue on our streets. It's something to think about as we move forward with this project. In closing, I would like to reiterate my parents' biggest concern for our home is damage happening to our retaining wall during the excavation process of this building project. This mountain that our home sits on and that this new project is on is a living, breathing entity. Any movement of dirt from excavation or blasting will cause this mountain to move and shift. And if shifting starts to occur, this could have devastating issues for our home. If our retaining wall sustains damage during this excavation process due to shifting, or our entire house runs the risk of falling down. So if the approval of this PUD happens, our family would like to know who would ultimately be responsible for any damage that our retaining wall and our home sustains during this building process, the town of Montreat or the MRA. Our family would like to have in writing that the town of Montreat and/or the MRA will be protecting our property from any damage during this process. These are our main concerns for our family's home. Thank you for listening and allowing me to speak today.
Thank you.
My name is Rusty Douglas. I live at 227 Alabama Terrace, right behind the post office with my wife, Betty. I've waited my whole life to speak at the end of a 3-hour meeting. We have a 4-year-old grandson who got to really play for the first time in Flat Creek last week, and he loved it. He even loved the pretty big snake that he encountered there. He told his dad when he went back to Florida, "I wish we had a creek in our backyard." Everyone in Montreat loves Flat Creek. Think what it would be if it wasn't there, or if it was polluted so that it couldn't be used. It would be awful. No one wants that to happen, especially MRA and the town authorities and all the children who love rock hopping. If I read the application correctly, it looks like this new plan is going to disturb 1.7 acres of a 2.1 acre piece of property. Planning to disturb about 10,000 square feet less than the original plan, so that's good, but it is still going to disturb 80% of the property in question. I listened to the report of a stormwater expert during the 50 hours of quasi-legal hearing. My memory is that he said in no uncertain terms that the stormwater plan originally designed was in fact going to be an abject failure. I would like to know what is going to be different in this new plan regarding stormwater drainage. How do we know if this new plan will be successful? Any expert weighed in on this new plan that is going to disturb 80% of the property in question? Last thing you'd want to see is a 5-inch rain when they've dug up 80% of that property. I was here for the 29 inches in 3 or 4 days with Helene, here for the whole shooting match. Secondly, something came to mind as listening to this discussion. I was curious about the architect's comment about needing the flexibility to build a swimming pool because it will help preserve the value of MRA's property. Now, I didn't know MRA worried about the value of its property unless they were going to sell it. See, MRA is not going to go under. They'll start selling property before that happens. But that was an interesting comment. Did anybody ever consider the devaluation of the property of those homeowners up there who are living nearby? In all the 50 hours, I don't think anybody said anything about that. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name's David Evans. I live at have a house at 138 Mississippi Road. And I'm also the chair of the Wilderness Committee. And I want to commend Montreat and make sure everyone's aware that Montreat has put this entire ecosystem in a conservation easement. Montreat cares about the environment, and it's almost implied by many of these people that Montreat is not a caring steward of this great, beautiful place that we all so love. And the Robert Lake Park is a Montreat park. It's a Montreat MRA park. And so to suggest that Montreat is going to build something that's going to destroy this environment is just very offensive to me, because I know and love the conference center, and I know what it stands for. And what we're trying to do with this lodge is preserve and protect the future of Montreat, the financial viability of Montreat, in a beautiful way that's so well worked with the community to get this thing to basically meet the objections of all of the neighbors. And I just commend Montreat for what it's done.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name's Monroe Gilmore. I live at 94 Penland Cove Road, Black Mountain, and I'm sort of an outsider on one hand. I live over this mountain in North Fork Valley, but my grandparents and my parents and I all came to Montreat. Both sides had houses and cottages in Montreat, and so I feel Montreat is part of me the way it's part of all of you. And I've come to these hearings from the beginning, and I really appreciate all that you all and all the different officials who have been at all the meetings. It really is inspiring. Having worked overseas for many years, it makes me value the democracy we have and the process that we have. And so I thank you, and I commend the MRA. The sides have all come much closer together than they were 5 years ago or whenever. And that is also a beautiful thing to watch. And my admonition and hope is that you all will continue this by listening carefully to what the Montreat stewards have asked and suggested, and the other people, and try to incorporate that into your discussions and into the final decision. And Mr. Hamilton, you made I'm ashamed to say that after all these years of going to these meetings, I didn't really understand the difference between a lodge and a hotel. And that was very helpful. And if there is a way to get that distinction into the wording of whatever you write up, I think it would be helpful to the whole community to understand that. So thank you very much, and I look forward to seeing how it continues to evolve.
Thank you.
I'm Martha Campbell. I live on Maryland Place, 149 Maryland Place. I speak in support of the application of Richard DuBose for a planned unit development zoning request. I can hear from today and from the materials that were submitted, and I read the packet that you all received, that MRA has done its homework with due diligence. I agree with David, who just spoke. This application is thorough. It has considered a lot of factors over and beyond what would be required. I'm old enough to remember swimming in Lake Susan. Some of you have probably done that too. The big stone staircase in the middle of Assembly Inn that led right up to the middle of the lobby and had these creative lighting fixtures that were made out of shells on the pillars, on top of the mica pillars. I'm not sure what those shells were native to, where they were native to. I remember a fire truck and gas pumps along Assembly Drive at the Montreat stores. A trail aptly called Suicide, which I enjoyed as a child, and the maintenance building on a dirt Texas road. These have been replaced by the conference center with renovations and reuse, and they make Montreat better for me, for my children and my grandchildren and those who follow. I know that additional guest housing is essential. My husband and I lead hikes for the Road Scholar programs that MRA operates, and we know that these folks who come from all over the country who've never been to Montreat want to come again, and they do come again, and the program can expand. I agree with the air-conditioned renovations in the inn, the new post office situation that we have, and today with the B-Dub Youth Center, that's where the old maintenance building used to be on the dirt Texas road. I'm glad for internet, for paved roads, and for a lot of other improvements that have been made. I hope that these improvements will continue to be made, and I think this request continues those improvements for us all. So I think in fitting with the town, with our community, with the institutions here, I support the request. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Chip Ledgerton. I have a house and live part of the year at 222 East Minster. I also have the pleasure of serving as the chairman of the MRA Mountain Retreat Association Board of Directors. And I'll just make a couple of comments. First, thank you for all of your efforts. I do echo all those comments. I will not repeat them since they've been made several times. Secondly, when I was in business, my best business wins came when there was a win-win for both sides. I really believe in my heart this is not only a win-win, but a win-win-win. It's a win for the conference center because We've come to a plan that still allows us to meet our ministry and mission here. Not having been able to develop this property or build a new lodge now in many decades is an existential threat to our ministry. Secondly, I do believe in my heart of hearts that it's a win for the neighbors as well. There's been extensive discussion about all the myriad changes that have been made in the plan at their suggestion. The board has spent a huge amount of time, energy, and financial resources to try and meet these requests, and I appreciate their willingness to work with us and to continue to work with us, and hopefully we will come to a happy medium. I also believe it's a win for the town. As has been discussed, what we could do by right now is much more against the Montreat character, if you will, than what we're proposing. What we're proposing restricts, really, our use of the property. It does not give us broader use of the property. We're saying this is what we propose to do. We're not going to build a multi-family development there that we could do by right. This is what we want to do. This fits our mission and ministry. There is no attempt here to make an end run. There's no ulterior motive. We can't control what happens in the future, but if we do this PUD, then you do, if that property somehow ends up in other hands, and all of these other myriad hypotheticals that are out there. So I do think it's an advantage to the town as well. Since our April community meeting, we've received broad support from the community for our willingness to compromise, for our changes to the plan, for our working with a lot of the suggestions that we've received. And I think that that broad community support is affirming to us that the time and energy and extensive financial resources the board has put into this revised project hopefully meets those needs. We would much rather move forward, I'll speak for the board, with this option 2. We still retain the SUP project, but we think that this second proposed project is a win for all of us. I would just last make a general comment about a number of the comments that have come. I'm not going to get into a refutation of each one. As chairman of the board, I will give you my commitment that we will do everything possible to maintain conservation in this valley, as we have done since the inception of this valley in 1897 and the purchase by the Presbyterians in the early 1900s. I would challenge anyone to say, what has MRA done that's adverse to the environment? We've put thousands of acres in environmental stewardship. We manage parks. We have pristine waters. We have wilderness committees to manage that. People entrust their children to us. I will promise you that we will do everything we can to maintain conservation of this property. Now, changes that have been made in concert with the neighbors may affect that. Larger stormwater systems may disturb more of the ground, may put more trees at risk. Putting multiple buildings with buildings on Georgia Terrace, our prior plan envisioned a huge buffer up there with trees that would have blocked view of the lower lodge. Now there are residences there. Those residences have to be constructed. So the complexity of this is complex, to be repetitive, but I will promise you that the board is as interested in preservation, managing water, managing trees, and building a building that is in keeping with the Montreat style, however you will, as we can possibly do given the restrictions of zoning, stormwater management, requests of the neighbors, and all the other things that have been put before you. Again, thank you very much for your time and attention. I do hope that you take our presentation, our application, as a good faith effort to meet the mission and ministry of the conference center, to meet the requests of the neighbors, and to be a benefit to the town as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Please go ahead.
I just wanted to input my parents' letter
If you could.
to you all, so
Oh, yes.
I forgot to hand it to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I've received the letters, so I can pass that on. Thank you. Any other public comment? Okay. Well, first of all, I want to do a time check with our commission. We're now at 3.5 hours. more or less. And what we have in front of us from an agenda perspective is we would move into discussion and consider any questions that we have, concerns, thoughts about moving to a vote, what that vote would be, et cetera. I would imagine that's going to take more or less 25, 30 minutes at a minimum.
Good.
You're okay. You're good. Are we all good to? I know there's also zoning admin updates, but the meat of this would be so. If everybody,
Do you think we could take a break before it?
absolutely. So does it make sense to take as quick a break as we can? Shall we say?
So I just want to let you know, I need to leave at 3.
Right. Well, I think what we're talking about is finishing before that. Yes. No. I thank you for that reminder, Alexis. So why don't we take a 5-minute break, get back to here as soon as possible. We'll continue and we'll intend to be completed through the last public comment and adjournment by 3 o'clock because we need to be. Okay, thank you.
I'll deliver club, make it as close as I can.
Oh, is that what you're doing? Okay, thank you. Yeah, go ahead and turn your microphone.
Do what you got to do.
Hello, everybody. We've got the commission members back, so we'd like to go ahead and finish our conversations and find a seat, please.
Tom's calling you.
Brandon and Alexis, do we close the public hearing?
Turn your
Okay.
here. I always forget to do that.
Because we may have questions.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Okay. All right, please find a seat, and we'll start back up. Please find a seat, and let's end the conversations. All right. Okay, a couple of things. Thank you, everybody. Thank you to the MRA for the application and the presentation, the amount of thought and intention that has gone into it. I know it has been quite a journey, quite a multi-year journey. And I think we all on the commission, as well as the community, really appreciate that. We understand that. I would also note that in the spirit of collaboration and dialogue that the MRA and the Montreat stewards have noted is so welcomed. It is in the spirit of Montreat, the spirit of the community, and there's just nothing but good that can come out of talking to each other. And 8 weeks of many conversations shows a lot of intention and commitment from all parties. So thank you all for that, and also making sure that we were aware of that. I think that's really helpful. I do know that the Planning and Zoning Commission must consider the application as it's presented. There are clarifications that we've received, and I think there's some other clarifications we will seek that help us, but the application is the record and represents the master plan. So I just want to note the multi-year journey, in some ways we have to put it to the side because what we are deciding is based on the application. So I just wanted to note that. Before I start asking the commission to weigh in for thoughts and questions, I just wrote down a list of general themes of items that I heard that I would like to read out for us as well as the applicant and the community, just to make sure that we are on the same page as to what we think those general themes are, and I'm certainly happy to edit and add. One of the topics was clarifying on the IRR uses that are in the application as reserved, but not currently depicted in the plan. I think we were seeking clarification on really how that works as part of the master plan. There was discussion on the vibration-based construction, how to ensure that there are protections to neighboring properties and the risks to the neighbors that could be caused by that, if in fact it is required. I did hear the applicant state that it may not be required. Discussion on the vegetative buffer that is on the plan on that north side, asking for, I think, essentially more description as to what that would entail. Clarification of tree protection plans, including trees in the right-of-way. Discussion on the renderings or the drawings, the fact that they're outside of the application. We all found them so helpful, but they are outside of the application. I understand why. I think we're clear on why they were removed from the application, and yet they're helpful examples of potential designs and how they would be in keeping with the neighborhood character. A lot of discussion on stormwater management. So potentially seeking clarification on that, and discussion around parking congestion. Are there other themes that any of the commission members have noted that I didn't have in that list?
I just want to know about the pool.
Oh, don't open that door.
Appreciate the levity,
Here all
appreciate the
day.
levity.
Stop it.
Just kidding.
I declined to add it to the list, Mike, but thank you for that suggestion. All right. Yep. Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry, just so I'm clear, are you asking for clarity, like more from us on that right now, or are you just stating that for the?
Right now, I wanted to just establish, a list that we could start to work from in order to be efficient, but thank you. I'm not quite ready for you to jump in. Okay. So as I think about these themes and think about where we could go with this, ask for clarification, potentially receive it today, move to a vote. We may find that we need more clarification than can be provided in the meeting. That's another potential outcome, especially noting that we've got some time constraints that we need to adhere to. And if in fact we were to continue the discussion, we really need to set a date pretty quickly. The applicant would need time to respond with the clarifications, but just given the lengthy timeline of getting to this place, we need to be prepared to hold another meeting before the October meeting.
Sure.
Yep.
If we have to.
Yep. And then I think, so those are the potential outcomes that I see.
I'd like to address some of those. I just wrote them all down. There's about 7 of them. One of them is the drawings. We're not we don't have historic designation, so therefore we have no control over how a building is built or not built, or the exterior. We just hope that the MRA is, going to do what they say they are going to do. So I think that is kind of not in our purview.
So you're saying that you don't think that we would have the ability to require that the drawings be added as examples?
I do not think so. I mean, we don't. But I'm not a lawyer.
I just want to point out that the whole thing about in the Montreat style or other things, it's really hard to say exactly what that is.
Exactly.
As someone pointed out, the Montreat style originally was 2 bedrooms and 1 bath.
A tent or a tent. And as you said earlier, who is to decide that? We do, it's a comprehensive plan that's kind of a broad brush, but there is no body that's supposed to be able to say, yes, you can do this, and no, you should do that. And I think
like an architectural review kind of thing. But the thing is I'm kind of heartened by the fact that every single person has said, these renderings look wonderful.
Yeah.
And they are so in the spirit. Everybody knew it when they saw it and said, great. So I feel great about that part.
I think we can trust MRA that if they feel like they have to make a significant design change, they would be upfront about that.
I agree. Can I keep going? Because
please go ahead.
The number 7, the parking congestion. I believe they've got. I'm sorry. What was your? Chuck. Yes. You had said there was going to be 21 spaces underneath, possibly 26. I urge you to go to 26. Considering there absolutely is a parking problem here in Montreat, and we all know even if you're going to stay there at the lodge, somebody's going to bring an extra car and park it on the street somewhere. So I highly suggest that we go to the maximum amount that you possibly can without impacting trees and landscaping so much. So that was number 7. Number 5. And I have one other thing to say about stormwater management. We as a body decided at our last meeting that we would go back and revisit the whole stormwater management issues in light of Helene. So we will be looking at that and updating our regulations and having big discussions on that. So that's
Well, in
our
actuality,
moving
they
forward.
began, we had Barry Crispin last meeting, tell us, what are your takeaways? What have we learned from Helene that would affect stormwater and that kind of thing?
I had a question, maybe Alexis can answer. Is there a difference in the stormwater management requirements and process for a residential versus a large facility?
It's based on the amount of impervious surface disturbance, so it's all the same, yeah.
I think Richard kind of mentioned this a little bit, but, we're putting a lot of scrutiny on this project, which I think there's very valid reasons for doing that. Whereas if somebody was building a house on their own, on property, there would not be this scrutiny, but there's still standards, if you build a house, you're responsible for making sure you don't have runoff, that you capture anything, you're not polluting the creek. So if I assume it's the same for personal houses that would be for this. And there's penalties, and, is there, how about surveillance or making sure it's done or something happens?
You're required by the state and by our ordinance to have an annual report. And that is based on when your as-built was approved.
I think, we do need to look at the new storm, or review the storm ordinance.
Yeah.
Make sure that it's up to date. And I think because it takes time to build anything, if we're lucky, we can get that done before they actually get something done. But, I think, we have to be careful that we're not trying to set a standard that whatever standard we set, we're not setting it for the entire valley, whether it's personal, right? So we want to stay within the reality.
And I did want to make one more point about
Will you make sure your
surveillance.
mic's on?
Is it not on? I'm kind of losing my voice at this point. I apologize. You also, any property that has a stormwater control measure or structural best management practice must record an operation and maintenance agreement, which is recorded in the Buncombe County Register of Deeds. So that also says who's responsible for it.
Well, I think we all agree on the importance of protecting that creek. And, we need to, I think there's two aspects. There's one, what is the storm ordinance requirements? And then there's how is it implemented and how is it monitored? And so those are three aspects that, should work all together. And I think, we have a pretty strong ordinances and requirements in place. It's just making sure that everything's done the way it's supposed to be done.
Actually, and I think along those same lines, when we're talking about everyone's concerned about Flat Creek, I think everyone's concerned about trees, everyone's concerned about, that magic number of trees and vegetation you can save while still doing whatever it is that you need to do. I felt, honestly, I heard that from the architects and MRA as well, working with the tree board and that kind of thing. So I feel like your concerns are valid, and I feel like they're also, people are trying to address them. That's what I think.
Madam Chair, the production team has asked me to remind everyone to speak into their microphones because they're having a hard time hearing us on Zoom.
Thank you.
Josh, if I need to repeat things because my mic wasn't on, let me know.
I think the number one, the clarifying language for that, I think that is just something that needs to be written up and put in, into this application. I think if that happens, we can kind of check that off.
We could do that with like an amendment too.
Right, yeah. The explosions.
Can we go back to trees before?
Oh, sure, absolutely.
I'm not sure, there was a lot of suggestions on labeling trees and marking as in advance and things like that. I'm not sure where that responsibility lies for doing that. Is that something that the P&Z would actually have a say in? I'm not sure that we can actually mandate that. I think we can mandate that the trees be protected, but I don't know that we can actually go in and say, you've got to label trees, you've got to do this. I'm not sure where our authority lies on that.
Of expertise. Well, I think one of the community members was suggesting marking the trees to be saved, or you could mark the trees that are going to be removed. But I mean, just to understand, I think visually what the plan is. So I think that was the clarification that I wrote down.
Yeah, I'm just not sure what our authority is. I mean, I think we can certainly encourage, or if we want to require that best management practices be followed, something like that.
I think that's already a requirement. I mean, Brandon, would you answer this question? So, as part of what kinds of conditions can the commission establish in order to recommend approval of the PUD? I think that's really the heart of your question.
Yeah.
I think what the commission would be doing is making recommended conditions for the governing board to consider.
But are there constraints on what those conditions can be?
I think they need to be reasonably related to legitimate interests of the board, but I think that you've got pretty wide latitude on what those recommendations can be. I would say that you are probably operating in your strongest footing when they are conditions that are agreed to by the applicant. Ultimately, that's I would use that as a starting point in a conversation. So, for the trees, for example, it sounds like what I heard was first understanding more from the applicant, where buffers are going to be, what kind of trees they're thinking of, those sort of things, and then basing your recommended conditions off of that.
I think having a landscape plan, and I just don't feel comfortable giving flexibility on that without seeing what are we giving away or what are we allowing to happen.
Right.
That's just too vague an area.
I agree. Also, to the extent I'm not clear exactly how many trees will be lost. And I know in a lot of instances where trees are cut down for a building, they're replaced with other trees in another area. And so I don't have a feeling for how many trees are going to be left versus how many there are now. So that might be something that could be clarified, and what the future is for additional trees or something like that.
I agree.
Counselor, I'm confused. As I understand it, the commission has a request in front of it that is written in front of us. And we're not here to second guess them on their design, what they're going to do with their landscaping. I mean, is that our role? I mean, everybody likes trees. Somebody was suggesting everybody likes trees, everybody likes clear water. I mean, so what are we supposed to do except voice community concerns about that? And what good does that do?
Well, this commission certainly has the option to just evaluate the application as is and make a recommendation based on the application as presented.
Make a recommendation to whom?
To the governing board.
Who's that?
The Board of Commissioners.
The Board of Commissioners. Okay. Yeah, this commission is sitting as a body making a recommendation to the Board of Commissioners, who will make the ultimate decision on whether to rezone the property. So I think, again, the board, has some latitude. It can evaluate the application as it was presented. It can include in its recommendation conditions that it, thinks are worth consideration of the governing board. It can I think, have conversations with the applicant. It's listened to community input, and it can take all of those things into considerations when it makes those recommendations.
Eleanor, did you want to?
Sorry,
No,
Eleanor
please
wants
keep
to
going.
say something.
Please go ahead.
No, I agree. Again, landscaping plan would be helpful. That would be the recommendation I make. I want to go into about explosions and walls. I have a very long wall in front of my house, and I know that it's on town property. However, as a homeowner, we're required to take care of it. Is that correct? I mean, in the past, I've had my wall fall down because of a flood, and I was in a real wrangle with, this was 20 years ago, sorry, with the town because I couldn't insure the wall because it wasn't my wall, it was the town's wall, and I'm sure I'm opening a big can of worms here, but so there was a big fight about, okay, I'll fix this, but you got to deed me the wall. No, that didn't happen. So the point is, things happen to our houses, happen to our walls. I'm not sure, and this is probably a legal thing, could we even indemnify the Hayner's houses if there was, if they were digging up rocks and it shifted their house or the wall? Is that even legally possible for the town to take on that indemnification, I guess, is the...
No, the town wouldn't be taking on indemnification.
The MRA would.
So the town is approving a project, and it would be up to the design professionals to execute their plan in a reasonable manner.
Okay, so there's a big dig, and the Hayner's house, the retaining wall falls down, or someone else's house, I'm sorry, your house, and the retaining, and there's big explosions. How is that in the real world? I mean, is that just a legal suit between the neighbors and the MRA because of that? I mean, I just don't see how the builder, I just don't see how we as a town or a body can make someone else pay for damages from an explosion. You look at me like you don't know what I'm talking about.
Well,
I'm not clear.
I think it's a little out of this board's purview.
Okay.
I think those issues are a little out of this board's purview.
So we can't make a recommendation on that because it's not in our purview. I'm trying to address everyone's issues, which I think are very valid, but I don't know, like you said, I don't know if we have the ability as a board to do that.
I might throw out an example, and Eleanor and Brandon can respond to it. So, for example, if there is going to be vibration-based construction, whatever the right terminology would be, could the approval require prior consultation with the neighbors, and then checkpoints of some kind during that period of time that's being employed?
And maybe I'm just out of my depth here. I'm not sure that I am that familiar with vibration-based construction. It's just not something that I'm familiar with or a term that I'm familiar with. I don't know that it's been proposed. I didn't see it as part of the application.
It was something
concern.
that the architect had mentioned, and I took vibration to mean either explosions or the tonk, to break up the
digging
stone.
I think the bottom line is if there is any damage to somebody's property through the process of building this lodge, who's responsible? And that maybe that's something we just need to get further clarification on, either from the town or from MRA. I would think it's an insurance liability question.
Well, why don't we?
I don't know.
We're a few we are really skipping ahead into the hypothetical of something that would happen and trying to say who would be liable for that event at the entitlement phase of a project. And that might be why it's sort of making me think that it's outside of this board's purview. I think that the board is looking at a site plan. From here, there are other processes, right? Before you can start sticking shovels in dirt, there has to be building permits issued, and things must be constructed under, the state building code and under, other laws. If there are construction techniques that are going to cause vibration, I think that would be something that is regulated under, grading, building permits, things like that. I'm not sure that it's in this board's purview.
Thank you.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I wish I had a better
No,
answer for you.
Well, in terms of just legality-wise, the vegetation plan, is that something that's in our purview?
I think.
Request that, your landscape plan?
Didn't you say that we could make suggestions to the town council that we receive a landscaping plan, or at least a tree protection, more information about what was going to happen with the landscaping before we agreed or not agreed to make a PUD?
Yeah, I think the board has latitude here. So, the board could receive information and then make a recommendation to the commissioners based on that. It could make a recommendation that the commissioners receive more information on that and consider it. I'm sure, I think that those are both options.
Okay.
Okay.
So it seems like the things that would hold up, if we did it like, suggest that the commissioners require some sort of landscaping or entertain, or talk to them about whatever, maybe we're not in the business of requiring, but consider that further?
I think the more complete application we can review and make a decision on, the better off the council will be. So, as opposed to saying we recommend the council get A, B, C, D, and then they have to deal with it, I think they would probably prefer that if we think it's necessary, we try to get it and evaluate it as part of the application process.
I think that's one way of thinking about it. I think another way of thinking about it is we've progressed it on the same length of time it's going to take whoever to get that landscape plan intact. Could happen at that same time, and things could move over. It's just another way of thinking of it.
You're right about timing. I mean, if it's going to take...
It's been a long time already.
If it's going to take 6 months to get a landscape plan, that's one thing, but, to me, it sounds like we have some suggestions or questions that maybe MRA can evaluate and see if they have comments or thoughts, or if they want to amend the proposal in any way.
Yeah, I think it would be a good time for the representatives to come back up. And I can read through the 7 items again, whatever is most helpful to you. But essentially, I think these are the questions that are coming up from the commission. In order to make, for example, as Clay suggested, essentially a clean recommendation of support, most, or maybe all of the commission members may end up telling you, that we would prefer more information in the application on these items, or a response on, how it's adequately addressed. And then, as Sally noted, we could also make these known to you, and then also make these known to the commission through our vote. So thoughts, do you want me to go one by one, or what?
Yeah, let's go one by one.
Okay, clarifying that the IR uses that are retained but not currently depicted in the plan, really can't be used. I don't know what the right terminology would be, but they're not executable.
Unless, that they come back to us for, that they come.
Swimming pool.
Okay.
That they come back for us for approval, if it's, yes. We just need that language in there.
Clarifying, that plan, plan page 20 is what is intended to be constructed At the same time, the IR uses are retained and are not represented in that site plan.
As a note.
As an, exactly.
Yes.
And am I correct? I hate to jump in here, but didn't you say you thought staff could rework that wording in such a way that it would be clear?
We wouldn't be reworking their application. We would be adding language for your recommendation that clarified that.
Yes. Yes.
So that would just be us accepting what you're saying.
To me, that falls in the category of restating what the ordinance intends. We're adding clarity.
It's clear.
Because if it's not on the plan, I mean, it gets into the question of, I mean, we're trying to avoid redundancy. If it's in the MZO as a base condition, we don't want to restate it.
I think the challenge is that page 20 and page 22 are in your plan.
Yes.
So they appear to be in conflict. So a clarifying statement that page 20 supersedes page, those uses, that's.
Well, then if it supersedes it, then we would be deleting all of those other uses. And I don't think is that what you're saying? We want them.
I think that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Yes, is that what I would like to see is something that said, these are the uses we're going to do. If other uses that are typically included in this type of thing are needed, we will come back to the people.
We'll need to update the plan.
Whoever would come back.
Yeah.
Okay.
We would come back in the future with
or whoever
another proposed plan. That's what you were saying earlier.
Can I speak to that?
Yeah, but go ahead, Richard, and then I've got something too.
Well, go ahead, Chuck, if you're ready.
We need the parameters, development standards for the district. And we would argue that all of the uses allowed in the district should be the IR uses plus what we're requesting. What's been put on the table is remove those, and then the next time an amendment is requested, the applicant needs to ask for a use.
Excuse me. It's not that complicated.
No.
Okay.
As we've talked about ad nauseum, you guys are not going to do a swimming pool.
That's correct.
And if you did want to do one, you've got to come back and ask us.
You need to modify.
In the form of the plan being updated, but not the development standards.
The site plan, but not the master plan. Because the uses would be listed in the master plan, but the site plan.
The name of the drawing, that's the PUD master plan.
Oh, I see.
That's the PUD master plan. The development standards, and this is where I'm pushing back.
I see.
We need all of the allowed uses listed so that if the applicant needs to ask for an amendment, Hickory needs to be replaced with something. It's the plan and the uses allowed are shown.
Ask for an amendment.
That's right.
I don't know that I can speak for everybody else, but my understanding is what we're looking for, my friend, is just a simple clarification. If we're going to do any of those other things, we need to come back.
I think he's saying that's already the requirement because.
Yes.
Well, I think.
This
I
is the
agree.
master plan and the development standards are not part of the master plan.
Then why are they there?
Well, that's
They're part of the PUD. The PUD is two pieces.
Okay, but the PUD.
PUD is two pieces.
PUD is what we say it is.
Correct.
You keep going back to the IR. You're saying that because those are part of the IR, they should also be part of the PUD. But the whole thing about the PUD is you get some things and you give up some things.
That's right.
And so what we're saying is, why don't you give up the swimming pool? Because you're not going to build it anyway.
So how do we determine which MRA can have and which they can't?
That's an obvious and very good question. The answers I gave earlier still pertain. First of all, I'm hearing about two separate issues we're discussing. The first issue is what would we have the right to do if the PUD passes? And I think we've clarified that if we have a right to do what is in the plan, and if we wanted to come back for additional use or a different use, we would have to come back for further approval. So there really is no issue about whether this PUD is too expansive as it is presented, in my view. The question I'm hearing is, how do we make it plain for anyone who is reading this application?
Language.
How do we make it plain that that is the case?
Yes.
I'm perfectly happy to work with the town commissioners. I'm perfectly happy to work with those present today on clarifying language to make sure everyone understands that what we all have understood after 3.5 hours or however long we've been talking about this, that is the case. That is not a problem. When I was speaking earlier to Bill's questions about my resistance to removing height from the PUD as listed, it really was more of a philosophical point of fairness. When you step away from this and say, in order to achieve this limited use through the PUD for a purpose that we're already using the property for, we're willing to give up future uses by right, that's a harder thing for me to wrap my head around philosophically. But I am totally on board with any language that we would want to add to our application or to any recommendations to the town commissioners, however you all choose to discern that would clarify exactly what we're getting today and what we're not getting today with approval.
Super. Are we good with that?
Yeah.
Good with that. Okay.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
We're about 10 minutes away from our zoning administrator's hard stop. If we're going to talk about continuing this to another meeting, we probably want to do that while we have her here to give dates.
Yeah, I think we need some more time. And we would have loved to get through all of this, but I mean, in order to have all the good discussion and comment.
Can you just mention the others so that maybe MRA can be?
Did you all write down the
taking
7?
notes.
Yeah, I
Yes.
saw Chuck taking notes.
Also, I do want to clarify, some of those things are accomplished in building permits that come later, to my understanding.
What would those be?
Landscaping plans and some of those things. I mean, if those, I'm just noting that those are part of a process. Those are part of a process that happens further downstream in what we understand to be the process. So if that has
Clarification
changed,
of that would be very helpful.
okay, that's great. I just want to make sure that we're not asking for like a willy-nilly around the typical process here.
What I think would be helpful is if we can continue this meeting to a date certain and really endeavor to wrap it up. I feel like we've made a lot of progress. I hope everybody feels that this time has been well invested in getting to the end. You all have the 7 items of discussion. If there's anything that you can do in intervening discussions to add clarity, I think that would be super useful. I understand Brandon's point about zoning versus construction standards. So construction standards may be outside of the purview of zoning. I remain really concerned about that as a community member. So I understand why it's come up for sure. Okay, having said that, let's see what we can do from an ad hoc meeting standpoint.
Can I ask one
Please go
clarifying
ahead.
question? When you're talking about adding clarity, is that something we communicate ahead of time that gets filtered? Are we talking about something that we address
Yeah, that's a
in
great
a
question.
future meeting?
That we work with staff to,
We can work to update that and, if it goes in their development standards or.
Right, ideally, I mean, again, it's our first PUD, this is going to be the record. I would prefer to see it updated in the application because I think it would be cleaner for future reference and for other people who look at it. And working with staff, I think continuing the dialogue that you've been having with other community members. I mean, you've heard them, and I know you've heard them through 8 weeks of meetings and 5 years. But, any other dialogue, I mean, it would be super to see that collaboration go even further so that there is support, like outright support would be great at the next meeting. Hearing all
Madam
that.
Chair.
Yes.
Can I ask one clarifying question? On the 7 items that you listed earlier, I did hear in discussion some discussion that some of these items were beyond the purview of the Planning and Zoning Commission. I don't know if you want us to develop clarifying for all of the 7 standards. It would be helpful to know what we need to focus on if in fact you all come back and say this is kind of beyond our purview. Are there any specific, any further guidance you can give us as to how we might clarify what you're looking for with those 7 items?
So out of the 7 items, the one that I heard that was strictly out of our purview was the vibration-based construction. Looking at Brandon to say if he's,
I think I certainly wouldn't be opposed to a condition that affirms that developers have a duty to construct projects reasonably and follow all relevant building code provisions and relevant provisions to any work that would cause those issues. That sounds like that sounds like a very reasonable condition as well.
So,
Can we get that repeated, please?
Richard, and for everybody, yeah, go ahead, Mike, and
Notice to the neighbors if you're going to start with the explosives.
yes. Yeah. Communication with the neighbors. Did you hear that, Richard?
I did.
Sorry.
It also seemed that discussion of renderings was considered beyond the purview.
The drawings.
Well, there was
Drawing,
the,
and
yeah.
Just
So I would say
stylistically.
that is in the board probably can talk about things like that. I think it's, does the board want to talk about things
Yeah.
like that? It's a can versus should thing.
Yep.
Yeah, but that is,
To me, there's preference and there's enforceability. And so, the style, that's something that I don't know that we can really enforce necessarily.
Or even agree on.
Anything that MRA can point to and say they're following these established standards, whether it's protection of trees based on, these standards or this process, something that has some meat to it that people can say, yes, I understand, and I can see if you're doing it or not. So whether it's the trees or whether it's the runoff or whatever, anything you can point to standards that you commit to follow, I think that would be helpful,
So-
like LEED certification or whatever.
Yep.
Thank you. That's very helpful. Thank you.
Okay.
Plus, you want to save that 125-year-old.
Sugar maple. Sugar maple. Sugar
lady
maple.
was talking.
Okay, we still have to get through. Okay, so are you all clear enough on what we're asking for on the 7 items?
You look less.
I think if we can work with staff,
To update the application?
compare notes.
Where you believe
what
it's
I heard,
relevant?
might be
Yep.
different from,
Just
you
gonna
know,
say
and we
you guys
come
were-
back with probably some visuals that allow for clarity and the decision to be.
That would be great.
Sounds like visuals are needed.
Right.
And what is MRA willing to do? Because I think a visual that shows,
What
and
goes?
if you can see, these are the trees that have to be removed because they're under a building, under a road. I mean,
Yep.
and we can have that discussion and then say, okay, these are the trees, back to the 100-year-old tree, that really need
Protection.
protection.
So please work with Alexis on that. How much time do you think you need? Because that will help us to understand when to set the next meeting.
Good question.
Couple of days.
Okay, I think we're going to need a
Just
little bit.
kidding, just kidding,
A
just
little bit
kidding.
more than that. Three weeks, for example, so I'm looking at a calendar, because I think we're talking about August. So the week of August 3rd, Alexis, your in-office days are Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday?
Wednesday, 9 to 1, Thursday and Friday, 9 to 5.
Okay.
Thursday.
So yeah, it's really, Thursday, I mean, it's probably Thursday.
6th. That would be the 6th of August.
Thursday, the 6th, Thursday, the 13th, I will not be able to do.
Thursday the 6th.
Yeah, the 6th.
I can do 6.
Can do 6.
Do we need to verify?
I can do the 6th. I can actually be in person on the 6th. Hotsy totsy.
Okay, so, can you and Brandon do the 6th? Can we get the room on the 6th? Okay, Josh, you're
Josh
saying
nod,
yes.
yes.
I neglected to ask the Hainers, the Joneses.
I mean, I'm not sure if you could set a calendar on our schedules, and I don't know all of our schedules.
Right.
But we will be having, already planned as of next week, more meetings, so it'll be tight for us to have the meetings and conversations about outstanding issues between now and the 6th.
Yep.
It'll only take us a couple weeks to actually have meetings, and, I mean, I don't want to speak long, but as they have made clear, they're still working out a lot of the issues that we
Right.
raised today, so it's partly a question for them, right, as to whether they will have responses to a lot of the things that we were raising.
Does this give you enough time to give full responses? Or do you want us to look at the latter part of August, the 20th, the 27th?
27th, I'm looking at it.
Yeah, 27th starts to get, really pushing.
I can't, I'm not here then.
Is this I mean, I don't want to drag this out any longer than we have to. I also want to make sure we're kind of clear across the board on our end, like what we need to do and what's possible.
Maybe we should see, are we available the 6th or the 20th?
Not the 20th.
Okay.
I
this
think
is-
it was kind of miraculous that you found a summer date.
And I hate to say it.
You're looking at 10:30 as well.
Yep, 10:30.
I hate to say it, but if we still aren't ready, we just have to have another meeting.
Don't say it. But
Okay, I think we've settled on Thursday, August 6th at 10:30. Okay. Zoning admin updates and discussion. Do I need to close the public hearing first?
No, leave the public, I would leave
Oh,
the
I'm sorry,
public
leave
hearing
it open,
open,
yes.
and I would have a motion and a vote to officially
Okay, may I
continue the
have a
matter.
motion to continue the discussion on the zoning request and public hearing to August 6th? at
Motion.
Motion from Eleanor. Second from Mike. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Thank you. It passes unanimously. Zoning admin updates and discussion.
All right, I'll make this very brief. Since I've been here June 23rd, I looked at some of the items that I have been involved in. I have approved 5 exempt zoning compliance applications, and they were very basic, just fixing rotten deck posts, retaining walls, changes in driveway materials, so impervious surface to impervious surface, basically. 6 more of my applications need additional information. I do have 1 variance application that will go to the Board of Adjustment on August 27th.
Thank you. All right, public comment. Is there anyone who would like to give additional public comment? We stick with our agenda. We absolutely stick with our agenda. Okay, seeing none. Well, the next meeting date after August 6th will be October 15th, 2026. Oh, we have another public comment. Well, we have another public comment as item 9. Seeing none, I will ask for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Eleanor, motion to adjourn. Mike seconded. We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Well, that was a meeting.
Did you say we are going to have
I think it was
the
good.
Board of Adjustment hearing on the 20th?